So how does a guy go about being recruited to the KGB?
Unlike the CIA, where you can actually apply, the KGB, you could not. They would recruit you. I wouldn't have known where the office was. They weren't in the phone book. And anyway, I would never have thought of applying, because I, like everybody else, or like most people, spy stories are very interesting. We had our own spy stories. We had our own James Bond, communist James Bond. But that was all in the realm of fiction, or in the realm of adventure. That wouldn't be me. I was going to be a college professor. That was my dream. But that changed one day when the KGB knocked on the door. I was in my third year studying chemistry, sitting in my dorm room on a Saturday, doing a little bit of studying. And in those days, almost all the students that would go home over the weekend. I couldn't, it was too far. So I was alone in my room. My roommate wasn't there. And that's interesting to note, because the person who knocked on the door knew that, must have known it. The person also knew which room, behind which door to find me. There were no nameplates on the door. So after many years, it occurred to me I had a neighbor in the next room. There was a Russian exchange student with whom I had some interactions and talk back and forth. I guarantee you, he was the one who fingered me.
Why do you think they chose you?
I was, as you probably know, in those days, the Stasi had files on everybody. And they apparently gave access to those files to the KGB, or maybe they gave the KGB some hints that, look, you want to talk to this guy. If you systematically went through files for students, the future intellectual elite of the Communist Party, the society, and so forth, I was a standout. You would shake this a little bit, and my file would come out for two reasons. I was an active party member. I was active in the communist youth movement of the university. But the standout entry was that I had just received the Karl Marx Scholarship.
Oh, wow.
Karl Marx Scholarship was very rarely given. It was limited to 100 concurrent holders in the country. 100 concurrent. In other words, if you get a new one to go in, somebody else has to be out. And so they were looking, like the CIA, they're looking for the best of the best. And I was a good candidate on paper, right? So the fellow, I get this knock on the door, and we had a custom at college, at the dorm, that when you went to visit another student in another room, you knocked and you walk in. The knocking was just telling them that somebody's coming. After the knock, the door didn't open, so I knew this would be a stranger. I say, come on in, and indeed, it was a stranger. The fellow was entirely unimpressive. He was short. He had his right arm in a cast. And he was just not likable. He was one of the few KGB guys that I didn't like. He was German. So right off the bat, I figured he was probably Stasi.
When you say Stasi, what does that mean?
East German secret police.
Okay.
Staatssicherheit, that's an abbreviation for security police.
Okay.
Okay. And then he came up. He asked me whether I am Albrecht Dietrich. That was my name. And I said yes. What can I do for you? And then he came up with the dumbest statement I've ever heard a KGB agent give in my entire 10 years working with a couple of dozen KGB agents. He said, Well, I'm from Carl Zeiss Jena. There was a firm that was very well known in not only in Germany but in the world. It made high quality optical instruments. And then he said, I just want to find out, do you have what are your plans after you graduate? Now, the reason it was dumb, because in those days, the entire time while East Germany was in existence, when you graduated from college, you didn't have the freedom to choose. You were assigned. So in other words, companies did not recruit. It never happened. That guy didn't even know how his own country worked. All right, so when he said that, I knew immediately he's making that up, and he's probably secret police. Now, I wasn't at all concerned that this would be bad. It had to be something, let's say, interesting. Mm. So we talked a while. I played along with him, some small talk, and what it's like to study chemistry, which was pretty hard, because this is one of the subjects where you have lab. Mm. So you spend.
They want you to make poisons?
Every afternoon, after you have your lessons and your seminars, every afternoon you spend 4 hours in the lab. Then you have to write lab reports. And then you have self-study. So my day started at 6 and it ended at 10. There was no play during the week. On Saturday, the morning was lab. Saturday afternoon, that's when I went for recreation. I went to a soccer game, and then I went dancing, trying to pick up girls in a student club. I usually went home by myself. I was not as charming as I think I am now. Too late, and I was very shy, actually, still. Anyway, so that's what we were talking about, and then he abruptly changed his tune. He did a 180, and he said, I got to admit to you, this was just a way to come in here. I made that up. I'm really working for the government. I could have made him uncomfortable by asking what part of the government. I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to hear what he has to say. And he came right out with it. He said, well, could you imagine one day to work for the government? And I said, yeah, but not as a chemist. Mm. So,
do you think maybe they wanted you to work as a chemist in the beginning? Like maybe you make poisons and stuff like that?
My best friend from college actually did work for the Stasi as a chemist. He wound up as the head of the forgery department. And he told me that the passports, West German passports he forged, they sold to the KGB. It is quite likely that he made a passport that I used to travel with.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, I think he really recruited me because of what happened next. He recruited me for something, not science. Mm-hmm. Because he was a German who was a volunteer collaborator with the KGB.
Wow.
Right? I didn't know this. When he said government, I thought it was still secret police, East German secret police. So, bottom line is, he had asked the question he came to ask me for, even though not in so many words. And I answered him probably exactly, gave him the answer that he wanted to hear. Mm-hmm. So he invited me to have a meal. When I say dinner, it's inaccurate. It's all in Germany, the big meal is at lunchtime. Mm. So in the most expensive restaurant in town, I still remember what I had. It was my favorite meal. So, but as I walk in there, he was already sitting there in the back at a table, and there was another man at the table, which made me a little bit cautious, because in those days it was not unusual for strangers to share tables, because there were very often not enough seats. So I just approached the table slowly, but my man, who never, by the way, gave me his name, not even a cover name, he came up to me and walked me to the table, and he said, I would like to introduce you to Herman. We're working with our Soviet comrades. Mm-hmm. So it was clear that It rhymes. That's why I'm going to say it. 1, 2, 3. I was with the KGB.